So Grandmaster Nightfalls are here. Unfortunately, that does not mean the new adept weapons, Palindrome, Swarm, and Shadow Price are available. Again, that won't actually be available until next season. Had a lot of people jumping in the stream today asking if we got Pally drops. Not the case. Not yet. But we are going to be going over Exodus Crash. This is the Nightfall for this week. And I got to say, overall, I actually feel like this Nightfall has been adjusted. It seems much less difficult than what it used to be. As in, it seemed like it had less ads. So first up, just to go over a few things on this Nightfall ordeal in terms of modifiers. We do have Arachno for this week, in which defeating fallen vandals will spawn a web mine at their feet, overload champions, and barrier champions. And I mean a ton of overload champions. As we also have champions mob, which has even additional champions. Now, I know I just said a second ago that there's less ads, and I do think that Exodus Crash does have less ads overall, but there are quite a few champions, mostly overloads, that spawn throughout the entire strike, and they can be held to do it. On top of that, you got Extinguish, Match Game, all that good stuff, along with Radar being disabled, as well as Thavic's Implant. Think I'm saying that right? Incoming arc and environmental damage has been increased. Long story short, boys, make sure you are rocking arc resistance. And you might even want to go arc resistance and sniper damage resistance, as this will allow you to tank sniper shots from vandals, which can easily one-hit KO you. Now, first up, let's talk about weapon synergy, what we were using that really worked well for us. I will say, throughout the strike, having some weapons for distance really helped us. I was actually rocking a scout rifle with a sniper rifle combined with Lament. For those moments that I did push up to immediately melt an overload champion, Lament would handle that wonderfully. But as far as handling ads, barrier champions, snipers, vandals, all those things, I did that from afar, and I did that with my Patron of Lost Causes, as well as my sniper rifle Trophy Hunter. Now, Patron of Lost Causes might be my favorite PvE weapon in the game. Comes with explosive payload, and considering that overload rounds are available for scout rifles this season, this is probably one of the best weapons to consistently get the stun in on overload champions, which is always an issue, right? Highly advised, guys, when it comes to stunning overload champions, if you aren't taking advantage of solar and stasis grenades alongside the artifact mod thermal overload, please use a scout rifle with explosive payload. It will make your life so much easier for more consistent stuns on overloads. Now, my weapon setup was essentially the same for both Les and myself, and the only difference between my loadout and Bombad's loadout, Bombad actually rocked a pulse rifle with anti-barrier rounds so that we can handle barrier champions. Other than that, we all rocked Laments. We all rocked sniper rifles. So as far as weapons go, it's pretty much the same. Now let's talk about the best subclasses to use. This one ranges, and I will say this: if you want to complete this strike in 20 minutes or less, no stress, hands down, Ursa Furiosa is the play. Comes with Ursine Guard, which allows us to block with Middle Tree Sentinel, applying both weapons of light for our teammates that are shooting through that banner and simultaneously blocking all incoming damage. Ursa Furiosa, though, allows us to consistently keep getting back our super based on the damage that we take. And in something like Grandmaster content, where the damage is amplified greatly, long story short, you will always have your super. And we were pairing this with a Well of Radiance. Bombad would essentially pop his Well of Radiance behind me. I would pop my Sentinel Shield and then proceed to block and cast my banner. But make sure you are standing outside of the well with Ursa Furiosa. I don't know what the deal is. This has always been a thing, but there's like problems with Ursa Furiosa when you stand in a well. I guess because you're not actually taking damage. Is that right? Long story short, just make sure you're standing in front of the Well of Radiance. Now, your Warlock should also be rocking Phoenix Protocol with his well, as that too will allow him to change supers back to back with you. Now, that's like the stress-free way. If you want to trim off a couple minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, rocking Bubble instead of Ursa Furiosa alongside Lament is nice. And essentially what I would do is, if I was rocking Ursa, I would rock Anarchy so that I could squeeze off a few shots of Anarchy before popping my banner shield. But if you're going Bubble, you might as well just go Lament and help out with damage. Now, granted, this is a little more risky, but you're able to contribute damage with your teammates, and if you can work around it, you will trim off 2 to 3 minutes on this Nightfall. Now, as far as our Hunter goes, we found that Les playing Revenant was really good here. He rocked a combination of Whisper of Bonds as well as Whisper of Fissures. Whisper of Fissures allows for increase in damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. target. Whereas Whisper of Bonds states that defeating frozen targets with weapons grants you super energy. Extremely beneficial, considering that's pretty much what you're going to be doing. And Whisper of Bonds essentially allows for Revenants to kind of keep up with the frequency of supers that Ursa Furiosa Titans and Phoenix Protocol Warlocks put out. So that was essentially our class layout. Nothing too complicated. Now let's get into the strike itself. If there's one thing to fear in this strike, really everything is pretty much your run-of-the-mill ad. The Vandals, the Overload champions, the Barrier champions. Even though there's a lot of Overload champions, that's not the thing you need to fear in this strike. Matter of fact, you don't even have to fear the boss himself. But I beg you, every time you see a pike driving near you, run, and kill it as fast as you can. Hands down, the deadliest thing in this strike is freaking pikes. And I don't get it. Like, I don't know why pikes are so strong. It could be due to the increase there in arc damage that we're receiving. Regardless, the reason why we're moving here so strategically is just to make sure pikes don't sneak us and kill us. And there's actually two areas in which you're gonna have to deal with pikes. So be very, very careful. Move as a team. Take them out. Do not try to 1v1 a pike. You're not man enough, man. I tried multiple times today. Now, this area does have a lot of Vandals. Don't worry about it. Snipe them from afar. You've got far range weapons, scout rifle, sniper rifle. You're good, man. Honestly, just keep chewing ads up from afar. Move your way up. And what we would just do just about in every encounter, we would just kill ads first and then proceed to kill champions with Lament. We would get a stun on them, proceed to push up, and then go to Pound Town with Lament. And Lament is disgusting. Now, Lament wasn't just doing all of this all by itself. It did have some help, most notably with Lucent Blade. And I do want to bring up a few mods here that are going to make your life easier when it comes to synergizing with your teammates and surviving. Number one, Radiant Light. Such a good one, especially if you're popping supers back to back. Casting your super causes nearby allies to become charged with light. On top of that, we were rocking with stacks on stacks, protective light for those moments that we were in a sticky situation and we need to survive, which is hands down one of the best mods in the game. But simultaneously, I was pairing this with Lucent Blade, which actually states that while charged with light, dealing damage with a sword will give you bonus sword damage for 5 seconds. This does consume 1 stack of charged with light. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I'm pretty sure it's a 35% buff there in damage. No, it does not stack with Weapons of Light or with Well of Radiance. But for those run and gun situations, especially considering that Overload champions don't sit still, 9 times out of 10, Overload champions aren't sitting in your well anyways. So you're going to have to go to them. And secondly, there's not a time duration on that buff. On top of that, if you are rocking an Arc Armor mod, you'll activate the secondary trait there on Lucent Blade, which will allow us to gain increases there in our charge rate for our equipped swords. Beautiful for something like Lament. Now, for this area, this is probably the most difficult area. You're going to have the most champions here in combination with just a lot of ads. Not as many as I remember, but still quite a few. Again, if you want to take the stress-free approach, sit on the stairs back here, have your Well of Radiance, pop their well kind of on the top end of the stairs so that you can stand outside of it with your Ursa Furiosa and your banner shield and just block for your teammates. Their sniper rifle and scout rifle can clean up ads, and then upon actually killing the ads, do you want to push up together to kill the Overload champions. Now, we did run the strike a number of times with that Ursa Furiosa, whether it was with Bubble Titan with Helm of Saint 14. I even ran Top Tree Tether for one strike. I didn't necessarily find it overly difficult, but Ursa for sure makes things cheesy easy, especially considering everything does do a lot of damage. If it happens to one bang one of your teammates, casting your super, blocking while getting the res, there's no easier way to get your teammates back up outside of maybe like invisibility. Throughout this entire encounter though, your Revenant Hunter occasionally, especially when the ads double spawn, they need to pop their super to both freeze and of course kill everything. That super tornado is actually really nice. Even if it doesn't kill the Overload champions, the fact that it freezes them in place is extremely beneficial. And another thing that Les would do at times if we were taking too much heat, he would use his glacial grenades defensively and just put it as a barrier separating us from the enemy. So for my Hunter Revenants, yes, there's a lot of things you can do here to act as both a support as well as a damage dealer in this strike. Now, the next area, again, fear the pikes. Lots of pikes in this area. Take your time going through it. You'll have a tank at the end of all of this that you'll have to chew through. But for the most part, everything leads to the boss room. This area before the boss room used to be one of the most difficult areas because you had like a wanted target and just a ton of ads. They would just drop out of nowhere. There's like so many ads, you would have to sit in the entrance area with your banner shield and just sit there and block the entire time. It's no longer the case. I would say a good 50% of the ads weren't present, and the wanted champion was also not there. Not sure if that's intentional on Bungie's part. I think they they did rework this strike in some sort of way because wasn't it bugged? Regardless though, this area is probably the easiest area. You got a couple vandals sniping and stuff, but nothing too bad. As far as the boss room goes, that left side was still our favorite side. Whether we were using Ursa Furiosa and blocking with a banner shield, or even just using a bubble, go to that left side and draw the ads as well as the boss to you. If you try to go to the middle, you're going to be fighting all of these ads on all fronts, and they can pretty much overwhelm you, especially in something like a well. Even inside of a well of radiance, you could still get one banked. Going to that left side kind of gives you some cover there, as it has like some boxes and stuff, and it pushes all the enemies right there in front of you. So if you are rocking Ursa Furiosa, pop your banner shield and just sit there on the front blocking. As far as I know, even with Lament and like Lucent Blade and other things, weapons of light, we were not able to one bang this boss. It has like immunity phases where it disappears and stuff. Extremely aggravating, and we tried everything to amplify our damage up here. The only thing we probably could have tried is maybe like Warmond cells, apply a debuff with it in combination with all three of us rocking Lament. But slow and steady wins the race here, and surviving is really the most important factor in this strike, so it's completely okay if you don't get the one bang. You also do have a few champions that spawn throughout this phase. Pretty sure they're both barrier champions, but that's about it. The main thing about this boss room, hug that left side. If you are rocking Ursa Furiosa, make sure you're standing outside of the well, and if you're rocking something like Bubble and your teammates rocking well, chain those supers back and forth to each other. That way, pretty much every time a wave of ads are trying to kill y'all, one of you has got a super there keeping you and your teammates alive. And your Hunter Revenant should be like in orb heaven, considering how many orbs are going to be raining on them from both Well of Radiance as well as Ursa Furiosa. So guys, that is your Exodus Crash Guide. Nothing's really changed as far as what we've done before, what we're doing here. Everything is pretty much still the same outside of a Hunter Revenant and of course our weapon loadouts. Lament definitely makes this entire strike much easier. Dealing with overload champions was a breeze with his sword. And I know we got things like Anarchy, Xenophage, you even have Eyes of Tomorrow, but hands down Lament in terms of burst DPS and survivability. Like, let's just remember, Rev consumption allows you to heal yourself as you're doing damage. So a lot of times I was like one shot, but simply doing damage with Lament would keep us alive. And this was a big concern going into Grandmaster content. I didn't know if I was going to be able to utilize this exotic sword well enough, at least previously, like before we actually got it. Most Grandmaster Nightfalls, I would still take advantage of like Xenophage, Anarchy, things that kept my distance from my enemies, even despite like Falling Guillotine being as strong as it is. Lament though, with its healing powers as well as its fantastic burst damage, is second to none for Grandmaster Nightfalls. So guys, try it out for yourselves. Again, if you want to make this strike as stress-free as you possibly can, Ursa Furiosa is your friend here, but feel free to try out a couple of different things. You might even find a better strategy for trimming off time. I think the best time we got was like 17 minutes and 53 seconds. Nothing fantastic, but still not bad. This is definitely not the Nightfall to speed run. There'll be better Nightfalls in the future, so if you're looking to speed run a Nightfall to get materials, I would probably wait. You can still do this one, but it's not a speed run Nightfall. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.